Let's get this first data point here. Rick Santelli's at the CME. Good morning, Rick.
Good morning. Well, we are up 0.4 on income and up 0.2 on spending. So we had it right in terms of expectations that income would be stronger than spending, and there wasn't any serious revisions. The last month, 0.4 was revised up 5 on headline. So these numbers aren't bad, close to expectations. Year-over-year deflator is up 1.9, and if you look at core PCE month-over-month, up 0.2, year-over-year up 1.3. No surprises there. The aftermath of this number hasn't really changed the landscape much. We're still only about 9 basis points away from 3% on a 10-year, and we are pretty much unchanged in the pre-opening futures. Dow up 7 and the dollar up just a smidge, as the world, of course, going to digest not only what came out of Toronto, or for some what didn't come out of Toronto, but of course some of the other issues going on with legislation in Congress. Back to you.
Yep, you covered everything right there, Rick. We'll talk more about it with you and Jeff Carter of pointsandfigures.com at the CME. Steve Leisman's in Washington, and of course our guest host, Governor John Engler's here in studio. Steve, I know you're without your computer terminal, but you must have some other stuff that struck you as you listened.
Well, just real quick, if Rick could give us the savings rate, that'd be good to know. You have a higher income and lower spending growth rates, then you think the savings rate should be around 4%, which is part of the adjustment process. And, you know, I was just listening to what you guys were saying before and sort of echoing back to conversations Rick and I have had the past couple of weeks. You know, some guys put the downdraft in the market right to the point when Europe started talking about austerity. So that could be a vision of things to come. And, you know, I want to say this. I'm not sure how much Rick and I disagree over where we want to go, but I think the disagreement is over the pace of how we get there and how quickly we get there and how much you want to see markets fall as we cut back on the government stimulus.
Right. The dose of medicine and how many of the side effects you're willing to tolerate. Jeff, your thoughts? I mean, the savings rate, by the way, I believe was 4. Jeff, your thoughts on the data and the week ahead? Is the week going to be about bracing for a continuation of more weak data?
Yeah, I think the week is all about unemployment. Everybody's pointing towards the jobs number. I don't think the market can really rally until the euro starts to show a little confidence, which would be above 125. But I kind of disagree with Steve in that, you know, governments can run deficits, but it depends on how you run that deficit. And when a government is stimulating the economy through Keynesian stimulus, it doesn't work because the multiplier effect doesn't go through the economy. But if the government were to cut taxes, let's say on capital gains or something like that, that's a meaningful cut that raises wage levels for workers and it increases production. And so there's different ways that government policy can impact the economy. And I think they really went about it wrong. And this G20 meeting was a repudiation of the Keynesian form of economic stimulus.
Rick, what struck you out of Toronto?
That we were so hard-headed. I think Steve's right. A couple of weeks ago, the markets did turn south because we keep talking about prolific spending, and that was around the same time we were digesting an unemployment situation that seems to be unaffected by paying firemen and teachers across the country, as noble as that premise is.
Steve-O?
Well, you know, unaffected. Unaffected how? Unaffected by being much higher if more teachers and policemen were laid off, but that's not all of it, Rick. You know, those are the populist measures here, and I don't think that wages.
Populist.
What's that?
No, keep going. I'm listening.
I got a jackhammer behind me, Rick, and I'm like, you know what? That's like every day for me, you know?
You got a jackhammer in Chicago, too.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's
this
my
is no
point.
big deal.
That's my point. No, I think that the market actually turned south several months ago when what happened in Greece made clear that governments were not going to be increasing their stimulus and going to be perhaps drawing it back. And I would say one other thing, which is that while the fiscal side seems to have sort of at least flattened out, what's happening on the monetary side is they have effectively eased in response to what's happening on the fiscal side.
Hey, Rick? Rick?
Yeah.
Rick, don't you at least think it's at least kind of, I don't know whether humorous is the word or fitting that the welfare states in Europe, you know, we had an idea of something to do, and they said, whoa, we're uncomfortable with, I mean, we're a little bit uncomfortable with that.
It's totally unbelievable to me that sane people could say, yeah, you know, it all started when Greece, you know, couldn't spend any more money, or they were the the canary in the coal mine that Europe couldn't stimulate more. Isn't the real conversation how Greece ended up broke via spending? That's the issue. The issue is you have to have prudent fiscal and monetary policy going hand in hand for long periods of time.
But Steve, we're outdoing Europe. They're uncomfortable. Even Europe is uncomfortable with.
Look,
hold off. We don't
buy the hype, Joe. It's the hype.
Okay. All right.
Because let me just tell you, Germany and France are both increasing their deficits this year. Okay. The big question is what happens next year. My understanding is that the planned stimulus from Germany and France are not going away this year. Unclear about what happens with the UK, with the new prime minister, but a lot of this is hype and about how austere the Europeans are really going to be. I think they're given a lot more credit for austerity than it's probably worth.
Yeah,
and the other thing is clear is that the problem in Greece had to do with a flaw in the European monetary union, and it was not about necessarily the fact that they obviously have no tax base. The problems in Greece are much different from those in the U.S.
Yeah, our tax system works a little more different. Jeff, you got something?
The problems in Greece are way different, but I think the principle's the same. The other thing is, I agree with Steve, this is a political statement. It's nothing more than that. Show me the politician that doesn't want to spend a lot of money and spend a lot of tax dollars. And that there just isn't one in the world.
Steve, we had a lot of people today saying, that lower taxes actually bring in more revenue, and that is the first violation of the Leisman rule that has never ever happened. No,
I didn't say that.
Higher taxes are always better because they bring in more revenue.
No, that's not what I
lower
say.
taxes can never actually generate more revenue, Steve. Right by business. That's the first rule of Leismanism.
That's not the first rule.
All right,
of Leismanism,
then explain what is it.
Because the facts don't comport with it. I think when the Bush administration cut dividends and capital gains tax, those taxes might have actually paid for themselves because of all the activity generated by the tax cut. But in general, I would say the rule is this, is that lower tax cuts generally do not pay for themselves, especially on the income side.
Stimulus does come back with a multiplier. I love that. Stimulus, you do get a multiplier, but tax cuts never generate any revenue with you.
No, that's not what I'm saying. The Obama administration...
That's rule number 2.
Hold on. No. Don't make up rules, Joe, okay? I got another
You're the one making them
jackhammer.
up. I'm just recounting them.
No, you are wrongly recounting. I got another jackhammer behind me. Now it's going. Got a jackhammer. Look, here's the deal, okay? The tax cuts did not pay for themselves last time around. There is a point on the Laffer curve when tax cuts might be helpful. Maybe that point is a 90% marginal tax rate. But my point is that we are nowhere near the point on the Laffer curve with a 35% top marginal tax rate where a tax cut pays for itself.
A 90% marginal tax rate?
Get to that 90%.
We're still on the curve where we're bragging about every dollar's only losing 30 cents. That's the part of the curve we're on.
Are we having? I'm curious, Steve, if there was any credit given to the U.S. If anybody thinks we're actually serious about the deficit and doing something. If there's anything
we started a panel. The president has a committee. After he spends all our money for the next 30 years, they're going to sit down and figure out a way to get the deficits under control.
The other thing to remember, too, is corporations are recognizing revenue this year because taxes are going up in 2011, 2013, and so they want to recognize as much revenue this year as they possibly can. So corporate profits are going to be looking better this year than they will next year.
Let me get this in. All you guys want to cut taxes en route to bringing down the deficit. That's the current principle.
I didn't say anything about taxes, Steve. I want the government to stop spending. Stop spending. Stop spending. Stop spending. Stop spending. That's what we want.
And cut the capital gains spending. Cut capital gains. Cut capital. Make it 0% and see what happens.
I think it'd be very good.
Steve, I think the jackhammers won today, but you can always come back for more.
I just keep saying what the data show, and the data show that the tax cuts don't pay for themselves. By the way, the Obama administration
bit you on the nose.
Look, the Obama administration.
Read some Austrian Economists instead of the funny pages.
Look, I'm ready to talk about Fred Hayek. I'm ready to talk about John Hyatt. Whoever you want to talk about.
Maybe we should be talking about the
Selma Hayek.
There's an economist we can all follow.
We're going to cut taxes and that deficit at the same time.
Go back to Russia where you understand the state and the citizen.
Steve?
Oh, boy.
Oh, Rick, you're gone, but thank you anyway.
Steve, it's not the Leisman's Little Red
Why
Book.
does he
That's
always
taken,
make
isn't
it
it?
personal? What's that?
It's not the Little Red Book. What's the name of your Leisman rules? That's already taken.
Look, what are you guys talking about? I wish I understood
The
this. Hold on a second.
Leisman rules. The Leisman stimulus always comes back 10 to 1 for every dollar you spend,
not what
and
I
no
said.
tax cut has ever helped anything.
All I'm saying is that government has a role in easing the transition in the face of a massive recession. If you wanted the government not to spend, Joe, you know that Hank Paulson, the Republican Treasury Secretary, said the unemployment would have been 25%, okay? That's what people were saying about it.
No way. You know what? During the Depression, Mr. Leisman, it wasn't the tightening that caused it. It was the fact that they had it easy for too many years. You know, you have to turn around and look at things, from the other side. Spending.
Rick.
You've been married too long.
I'm on Steve's side on this. There are times when the government has to step in. I think probably what happened 2 years ago was a time.
And they did.
And a couple of $1 trillion later, they're done because the taxpayers are the people voting, and they're done, Steve. Talk all you want. They're done.
Rick, you tell me, how much
Merkel's
of the deficit...
done. Europe's done because the voting electorate has said they're done.
Okay, I agree with you that the politics have turned against deficit spending. But, Rick, how much of the deficit increase do you think comes from the economy? And I'll tell you the number. It's about 60%.
You know what? I don't even care, Steve.
Because
our deficit's too big, and we need to knuckle under, and we need to live more prudently.
I agree with that. But when do we do that, Rick? When do we do that? What happened in 37?
November 2nd.
Is that what you want?
November 2nd. November 2nd is the day.
Rick, is that what you want? 1937 all over again.
Wait a minute.
I love the Santelli double dip.
Okay, guys.
The Santelli double dip.
I'm being told
that's what we're going for.
Game over. That was good, though.
The 30s have given more rise to liberal economists.
No extra time.
Steve, Rick, Jeff, thanks a lot. The governor's going to be here for the rest of the hour.
Mission accomplished.